اللهم لا سهل إلا ما جعلته سهلا وأنت تجعل الحزن إذا شئت سهلا سهلا. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. اللهم أخرجنا من ظلمات الوهم إلى نور الفهم وأكرمنا بمعرفة العلم وزين أخلاقنا بالحلم يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم ربنا نسألك البركة لنا في أعمالنا وفي أعمالنا وأرزاقنا وأهلنا وذوينا وأحبابنا. اللهم حبب إلينا الإيمان وزينه في قلوبنا وكره إلينا الكفر والفسوق والعصيان واجعلنا من عبادك الراشدين. اللهم اجعل لنا من كل ضيق مخرجا ومن كل هم فرجا. اللهم اجعل لنا من بعد العسر يسرا. اللهم اجعل لنا من بعد العسر يسرا. اللهم اجعل لنا من بعد العسر يسرا. اللهم إنا نعوذ بك من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا ومن شر الشيطان ومن شر كل ذي شر أنت أعلم به منا ومن شر فتن الليل والنهار. اللهم ربنا بارك لنا في أهلنا وذوينا وأحبابنا وفي ذرياتنا يا رب العالمين. ثبتنا بالقول الثابت في الحياة الدنيا وفي الآخرة. اللهم ربنا ارزقنا حبك وحب من يحبك وحب كل عمل يقربنا إلى حبك. واجعل محبتك ومحبة نبيك محبة تنجينا بها يوم الدين. Allah, we call upon you, we pray to you, beseech you, we ask you by your names and attributes to bless our lives and our livelihood, and to bless our families and to bless our progeny. We ask you, Allah, to make the best of our actions the last of our actions, the best of our days the last of our days, the best of all days the day we meet you and you're pleased with us. We ask you, Allah, to make us steadfast upon the right path, and to bless this space, to bless this masjid, to bless this community, and to make it a space of dhikr and ibadah and activism, and to make us of those who strive seeking your pleasure and seeking your Jannah. We ask you, O Allah, to facilitate our affairs. We ask you, Allah, to fill our hearts with your abundant mercy, and to fill our homes with your abundant mercy, and to make the last words that we leave this dunya with, La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah. Oh Allah, we ask you to bless us to witness the month of Ramadan. Oh Allah, bless us to witness the month of Ramadan. Make us of those who strive in your servitude in the month of Ramadan, and to make us of those who are emancipated from hell in the blessed month of Ramadan. Ameen, ameen, wa akhir da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Amma ba'd. Jazakumullah khair for attending tonight's Friday forum. And the subject, as you probably saw on the flyer, is about building character and emotional intelligence. It's one of those subjects that relates to every single one of us with varying ages and varying circumstances. And inshallah, we'll hopefully have a meaningful and fruitful discussion. It's always a pleasure to have my dear brother Ibrahim to join me for the discussion and to hear from you guys through our Slido. I'm going to pass it over to Ibrahim just to start the program off and to share with you guys announcements, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, and then we'll get started with the framing, inshallah.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Barakallahu feekum for coming. Welcome back to another episode or another Friday forum. A lot of exciting announcements, but before that, as the Sheikh mentioned, we have the Slido up. You can scan the QR code, ask a question. Please remain as relevant as possible to the topic. Anything that comes up, you can ask away. If you see a question that you can like it, and it'll go up to the top. We'll choose the ones that are most relevant and the ones that are most liked, inshallah. We may not get to all of them, but we will try our best. Also, housekeeping, if you're going to have any side conversations, please have them outside the musalla. Snacks and tea and coffee is on both sides for the brothers and the sisters. As for the announcements, we have a lot of programs happening here at ICPC Clifton. The first one is the Basics of Islam course with Shaykh Osamah and Ammu Fikri. That'll be on Saturdays, 6 p.m., starting January 21st. Now, it is for converts and newly practicing Muslims. So it's not just for converts, it'll be going through the basics of Islam. So it is open to all people. The next program that we have, which will be starting this Sunday, inshallah, on 6 p.m. as well, is Ulum al-Quran with Shaykh Osamah. And all of these are on the email, by the way. If you go to the icpcnj.org, you can subscribe to the email list. You'll get an email every week. And then also, I believe this is on the 21st of January, on a Saturday, between 5 and 6:30, we have the Community Hub. So we're bringing back Community Hub, but it's a little bit different. It'll be gauged to parents and children. There will be two programs happening tandem. So on one end, you'll have the parents who will have a discussion with Shaykh Osamah and Ammu Fikri about parenting with purpose. And on the other end, you'll have the kids from ages 7 to 14. They'll be having a talk with Brother Ibrahim Salman on how to go to Jannah through your parents, inshallah. There will be food served at the end of the program, and there's also free babysitting for the ages from 2 to 6. So inshallah, this is a program for people of all ages, starting on Saturdays. I believe that is all for the announcements. We can start, Sheikh. If you'd like to introduce the discussion to us, what exactly are we talking about when we talk about building character? Where do we begin? What are the key points that we need to begin with?
Jazakallah khair, Akhi Ibrahim. Allah yahfadak ya Rab. I just want to start off by emphasizing that this subject was chosen by your votes. I said this before, we've been polling through the WhatsApp group. If you're not on the WhatsApp group, you can always join it. Just ask one of the volunteers for the link and they'll share it with you. We shared a few different subjects last time, which was a few weeks ago. And this one got a high number of votes, and that's because it's really relevant to what we're all dealing with, the subject of building character and emotional intelligence, and really just managing our emotions in general, and learning how to, channel our emotions in our relationships is something that we all struggle with at some level, at some points in our lives, So that's where the subject's coming from. For starters. As for, the subject is a really vast one. But I just want to start off by asking, how many of you guys heard the khutbah that I gave earlier today? Because it was relating about the same subject. If you could just raise your hand. Only a few people. If you go back, the foundations of this discussion could be found in that khutbah. What I spoke about, Akhi Ibrahim, in the khutbah was how the journey to building character actually starts off from a place that many may not perceive. And that is, when you think of great people, you see their achievement. You think of the Sahaba, for example, how great they are. How even to this day, we're still celebrating their legacies. Or even great people today, who were able to achieve a lot of things throughout their life, and you admire them perhaps. Sometimes we tend to see that greatness and cannot see what was put into that in terms of people's struggles and their flaws, the mistakes they made along the way. You see the end product. And sometimes this causes a misconception to happen in the mind. That is, every person, every human being, no matter how great they are, has to go through some journey of growth. And that journey of growth is full of mistakes. And the sooner I realize that, the better I'll be able to start understanding my flaws. As far as I can see it, it's a journey of mistakes that are realized, and then the person modifies and corrects themselves along the way. That's what it is. Even with people like Sayyidina Uthman bin Affan, who we mentioned in the khutbah earlier today. Sayyidina Uthman bin Affan, he's as great as you possibly could get in terms of accolades, and he was one of the 4 khulafa. He is the Nurayn, the one of the 2 lights. He was married to 2 of the daughters of the Prophet ﷺ. One, and then she passed away, and then he got married to another. And he has many others. What else? What else you guys know about Sayyidina Uthman? Sayyidina Uthman, what else is he? Everyone should know something about Sayyidina Uthman. So he's Dhun Nurayn. He is what? What is it? Very generous, right? ما ضر عثمان ما فعل بعد اليوم. When we mention generosity, we mention the generosity of Uthman. He is referred to as also what? What else? A man who what? Exactly. رَجُلٌ تَسْتَحِي مِنْهُ الْمَلَائِكَةِ. A man who the angels have a sense of shyness from. That shows you the greatness of Uthman. The Prophet ﷺ loved Uthman bin Affan. But yet there was a point in his life, and this doesn't take away from him at all. Not at all, it doesn't. There was a point in his life where he was one of the people who fled from the battlefield in Uhud. He fled. And this is actually something that some people tried to hold against him later on in his life when he was Khalifa. What the ayah we mentioned it yesterday, we mentioned it during the khutbah, and we also mentioned it in the khatira yesterday. This is a beautiful ayah from the Quran. And it gives perspective to building character. إن الذين تولوا منكم يوم التقى الجمعان إنما استزلهم الشيطان ببعض ما كسبوا وَلَقَدْ عَفَى اللَّهُ عَنْهُمْ. Those who turned away, the day that the two groups met, the shaitan got the better of them, and Allah has forgiven them. وَلَقَدْ عَفَى اللَّهُ عَنْهُمْ. So that's something to think about. Every person has a journey that they grow through, and that journey involves a lot of mistakes. And that's the first realization I need to have if I'm going to build character. And that's, before, I transition to whatever you have to add to that, Akhi Ibrahim, it's not an easy process. Building character, becoming an emotionally intelligent person is not something that's glamorous. It's not something that happens in an easy way. I am going to do a lot of regretful things before I start understanding. All right, this is what's good for me, this is what's bad for me. This is what I need to avoid, this is what I need to, and that's okay. But I need to be very careful of the things that completely ruin that process. That process of growing as a person, because sometimes there are certain characteristics that are absolutely fatal to the journey of growth. All right, if I know it's okay I make mistakes, and if I realize that, that means I'm going to be ready to learn from my mistakes, and if I'm ready to learn from my mistakes, that means I'm going to be willing to listen to advisors, listen to people who can give me good advice and, share with me things that I don't see about myself, right? So that's all part of that process. And I shared a few other things, but I guess that's for starters what I have to contribute at this point. I don't know if you have anything to add or if questions are coming in yet.
Barakallah feek. Shaykhna, that's a very, very great opening, thinking about character as, something that takes work. It's a constant improvement every day, just trying to be better than yesterday. We all have our flaws. We work through this journey, and what I'm hearing is it takes a lot of humility to be open from adab al-ilm, from the ways and the attributes of a student of knowledge or a student of self-improvement is humility, is constant learning, keeping your ears open, keeping your heart open, being resilient, being able to continually go through this path. And I think it's very helpful to remember that the Sahaba went through this every single day. And we think of the ahadith of the Sahaba who say, when we're with you, Ya Rasulullah, we feel this emotional high, this high level of iman, and then we go into our dunya and with our kids and our families and our work, and we feel this low. And that's part of the journey. And that takes a high level of humility, a high level of self-awareness. So what are some steps, and what are these pitfalls that you're discussing or that you're alluding to? What are the things that would prevent us from building our character?
I think that in itself is, there's just so many things to add to this list, but for starters, definitely at the top of this list is, being too prideful to admit mistake. That's one of the greatest killers. It's the greatest iman killer. It's actually a guaranteed ticket to ultimately leading to hellfire. It's one of those things that ruins relationships, ruins people in the process. Being too prideful causes so much damage, brothers and sisters. And I'm telling you from a place where, a lot of people, just as being an imam and being in a masjid, a lot of people find themselves in a position where they may need to get a consultation, seek advice, get some counseling. And it's often a theme that you find in these situations that people are sometimes so unwilling to consider the possibility that they're wrong. So unwilling sometimes to just listen. Let me just listen. Let me perhaps reconsider my ways. Let me make some adjustments. Being too prideful to admit wrongdoing is at the top of this list. Absolutely at the top of it. Another, look, what builds character? What builds character? It's the hard stuff much more than it is the easy stuff. Like what? How do you act in heated situations? In disagreements, in times of tension, times of conflict? All of that shows. And that's why the other part of this title is emotional intelligence, because it takes a lot of emotional intelligence to be able to contain yourself in a heated situation. You know what? When everything's all easy and we're good, it's easy to smile in someone's face and say, hey, I love you for the sake of Allah. Hey, you know, this, and that. And just say words that are very light and casual. It's another thing to be able to contain yourself and do the same when things are really heated. So that really, you know, take a look at this story from the time of the Prophet. It was one that I wanted to share in the khutbah, I didn't get a chance to. You guys know Hatib ibn Abi Balta'a? You guys know him? Who knows him? Raise your hand. Anyone? You know him? You know the story that's associated with him? You heard of him. Jazakallah khair. This is a companion, you need to remember his name. Sayyidina Hatib. He is a companion that witnessed Badr. And if you know anything about Badr, it was a really tough situation. Why was it tough? They weren't ready for battle. Why was it tough? They were greatly outnumbered. You know, it was 3-1. That's what it was. They weren't ready for battle because they didn't mean to go out for battle. They were meaning to do something else, to intercept the caravan. And in that battle, after it happened, the Prophet ﷺ said that these people, the people of Badr, they have special status because what they just went through was something that's a massive testimony to character. A massive testimony to character. When someone does the right thing against unbelievable odds, it just shows you how pure, how good the content of their character is on the inside. That's an opportunity. There's a reason why the people, the companions during the Meccan period were not like the same as the companions during the Medinan. They're not the same. لا يستوي منكم من أنفق من قبل الفتح وقاتل. The ones before the conquest of Mecca are not the same as the ones after the conquest of Mecca. Not at all. They're not the same. Why? And that's why in the end of times, the Prophet ﷺ also tells us that the people who are able to stick to what's right against unbelievable odds are not the same as those who are able to do it when everything's all good and easy. Remember that the next time you're all alone and you could get away with doing something wrong and no one, or perhaps no one you really don't want to find out, won't find out. That's a situation that builds character. When you're alone with something haram, and or you're able to do something and get away with it and you don't do it, that builds character, right? So what happened with the story of Hatib? Hatib had family that were still in Mecca. And he was really worried for them. He thought that maybe if he gives notice to the mushrikeen that the Prophet ﷺ is coming, that they'll somehow be lenient with his family. They won't, they'll take care of his family. So what did he do? He wrote a letter, he sent it with somebody to Mecca to tell them the Prophet and the companions are coming. What do we call this? What do we call it?
It's treason.
What do we call it? It's treason. Can you get any worse than this? It's one of the worst things you could do. A treasonous act against the Prophet ﷺ himself. The letter was intercepted. How was it intercepted? The Prophet ﷺ was told by Jibreel, there's a letter being sent to try to disturb the plan. So he sent companions, they intercepted it. And then Hatib was brought forward. Hatib. At this point in the story, does this ring any bells? Does anyone remember the story now? Seems like you do. Anyone else remember the story? Raise your hands. Few people? All right, good. Alhamdulillah, we need to read the seerah. Seerah teaches us a lot. You want to build character? Look at the people who have a lot of character, learn them. Character is contagious. Character is contagious. If you're around people who have a level of wisdom, that wisdom will inspire you. It'll inspire you. That's what Sayyidina Luqman told his son. There's this really beautiful quote from Sayyidina Luqman. He tells his son, "O my son, sit closely to people of understanding, because Allah revives the heart with the light of understanding, just as He revives the barren land with the rains from the heavens above." That's what Sayyidina Luqman said. Anyway, getting back to Hatib. What do you think the Prophet ﷺ did with Hatib? He's a person who just committed treason. What do you think Sayyidina Umar said? What do you think Sayyidina Umar said? He said, there you go. The brother said it. Just like that. He said, O Prophet, let me cut the head of this munafiq. Sayyidina Umar, he was very brute and tough, and but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put the truth on the tongue of Umar. Anyway, so the Prophet ﷺ said, calm down, Umar. You know who this is? This is Hatib. He witnessed Badr, and maybe Allah looked at the people of Badr and said, do as you may, I have forgiven you. What does this tell you about the Prophet ﷺ? What does it tell you about it? Think about it. Think about it. Think about it deeply. What does this tell us about the Prophet ﷺ? This is to every person. I shared this when I was giving the khatira, the shorter version of the khutbah today. Some people, all you have to do is just blow on them, and they'll fight you for a year. That's it, khalas, they'll put an X on you. This person, I hate this person. Whenever this person walks my way, I'm going to walk the other way. I'm not going to say salam anymore. Why? Just blew on them. That's it. That's it. That's all you did. People have sometimes such a short fuse that all you got to do is just step on their toes. They'll make dua against you and your family and your children till the day of judgment. That's how some people are. It's insane. And I wish I was just joking. I wish I was just joking. You know how many times people religiously started making dua against someone just because they hurt them one single time? They started making dua, sujood, with a whole lot of khushu'. Oh Allah, do this and this and this to that person. You know, the scary thing is, if that dua was a dua of dhulm, I wonder what's going to happen to that person who's making dua against this person. Right? Be very careful. And the crazy thing is sometimes people do that against their own family members. Make this type of crazy dua against their own family. So anyway, getting back to Hatib, what does this tell you about the Prophet? Prophet ﷺ did not forget the good things that people did, even when they did such horrible acts. Even when they did such horrible acts. That tells you a lot about emotional intelligence. That takes character. You know what? To forgive somebody who wronged you, that takes character. To look beyond someone's mistakes and flaws to see the goodness that people have, that takes a lot of character. Character is becoming such a scarce quality among people. Again, we need to invest ourselves in this. This is what real deen's about, brothers and sisters. Real deen is, how do I deal with my anger? Real deen is, how do I deal with my sins? Real deen is, how do I communicate my emotions? Real deen is, how do I really become a person who is introspective? I look, sometimes, this is a scary thing, may Allah protect us. Sometimes people, when they hear like religious rhetoric, the hadith, Quran, advice, something like that, they look at it through the lens of the other. How can I weaponize this to send a condescending remark to someone else? These words are perfect. Oh man, it's such a good dars, it's such a good khutbah. Yeah, I know 10 people who this applies to. Guess what? I'm not on that list. I'm never on that list. That's a very bad sign of character. If I'm never willing to reconsider my ways, this is one of the biggest. That's my rant about that. So
we got through pride, but we touched a lot upon emotional intelligence, and what I hear is emotional intelligence takes a high level of wisdom, and we understand wisdom to be doing the right thing in the right time, in the right way, in the right place, and that's what the Prophet ﷺ practiced. And that's what the Prophet ﷺ taught us, and that's what we see the Sahaba learning from. And the Sahaba, in the Seerah, there's plenty of mistakes that the Sahaba make, where the Prophet ﷺ gets very upset at them, or the Prophet ﷺ teaches them and corrects them, and so they become these leaders of the Ummah after him. So can we dive in a little bit more into emotional intelligence? What does it start with? Does it start with self-awareness? Does it start with selflessness? How do we really harness this tool? Because it is very important and very lacking among us.
Yeah. Jazakallah khair. So, look, I just want to, clarify something. When I keep on saying building character, I'm not speaking about good akhlaq, even though akhlaq are part of character. Yeah, this talk's not about good character. This is about how can I really build my identity as a Muslim. بناء الشخصية المسلمة. What does that take? It's more than just about having good character. Like you said, we're going to the other part of the discussion, emotional intelligence, and what does that take to become someone who's emotionally intelligent? Self-awareness, definitely on the list. Self-awareness, right? Self-accountability, definitely on the list. A sense of humility, definitely on the list. A willingness to overlook the flaws of others, definitely on the list. What else would you put on this list? Raise your hand if you want to say, add a few things. What do you think contributes to having, the ideal Muslim personality? You want to say something, brother? Go ahead. Ownership. What do you mean by that? I love it. I love it. Jazakallah khair. Wow. MashaAllah. Mm-hmm.
And where there's a saying where it goes, don't move your opponent, move yourself. You can't change the world, but we can't change ourselves.
Ya salam.
And I learned that through taking extreme ownership.
Jazakallah khair. Jazakallah khair. Now we know who not to mess with in the room. MashaAllah. Jiu-jitsu, Allahu Akbar. But I love it. Just so in case anyone didn't get to hear it. Ownership. You know what? This is something that shaitan doesn't do at all, right? Some people are like this. Absolute deflection. Whenever something happens, it's because something else happened. And some people, this is a very scary quality, brothers and sisters. You know, sometimes some people will be deeply in the mix. Their hands are muddy. But as soon as things go south, I'm going to wipe my hands clean from there. Oh, I had nothing to do with it. I don't know. It's not me. It's someone else. Oh, maybe it's her or him or whatnot. You know, the Prophet, the Quran actually says this. The Quran tells us that hypocrites act in this way. وَإِنَّ مِنْكُمْ لَمَنْ لَيُبَطِّئَنْ فَإِنْ أَصَابَتْكُمْ مُصِيبَةٌ قَالَ قَدْ أَنْعَمَ اللَّهُ عَلَيَّ إِذْ لَمْ أَكُنْ مَعَهُمْ شَهِيدًا. There's some people, they keep 2 steps back. You know what? Let me just watch and observe. Where's this going to go? It's going to go south? All right, I'll take a few more steps back. Let them take all the blame. All right? But then, I'm only 2 steps away. If things go great, I'm going to rush forward. Yeah, I was with you guys. It was my idea to begin with, right? All right? So, that's a scary quality, a characteristic to have. Deflection of blame. Everyone around me is to blame for my circumstances, except me. Except me. We need to be conscious of this, brothers and sisters, because for some people it's like a loop. Not just 1, 2, or 3 incidents. Some people, their whole lifestyle, years on end, are a compounded reflection of this reality. All fingers pointed around me, this way and that way and that way. It's all because of everyone else but me. That's what Iblis did. Shaitan, he did this. He said, what he said? فَبِمَا أَغْوَيْتَنِي. It's you who misguided me. It's because of Adam that I've become the misguided one. It's because of Allah. Right? That's Iblis. That's a satanic attitude towards Allah. And that shows very weak sense of character. Very weak sense of character to not own up to my wrongdoing. I ask Allah Azza wa Jal to protect us from that. Okay, so we took one from the brothers. I'm going to come back to you, Yusuf. Anyone from the sisters wants to add to that? A characteristic that you think is critical in terms of building a whole, complete identity and how that plays in a lot of things. Anything you want to add? Go ahead, sister. Purpose. Absolutely. Having a sense of purpose. Brothers and sisters, when I have a sense of purpose, I'm deriving my strength from deep within my soul. It makes the person's deeds different. When someone does something half-heartedly, they don't believe in it, there's no way it's going to have that impact that it's supposed to have. Sometimes people feel, I say this a lot about the Prophet ﷺ. Prophet ﷺ, he won over people's hearts because he had purpose, like you said. Because he really wanted what's best for them. People can sense that sense of sincerity, that sense of that genuine nature when someone's really in it. It's not just for any fake ulterior motive. That's something I need to consider. When I consider emotional intelligence, when I consider my character and who I've become as a person. You wanted to say something, Yusuf. Go ahead. Sympathy and compassion. I definitely agree with that. Jazakallah khair. That's definitely a critical part of this discussion. Brothers and sisters, sometimes we can be very heartless with those around us, especially in difficult situations. I need to be careful from this. The Prophet, take a look at this. Just think about this. The Prophet ﷺ had to live a good number of years. A good number of years for most of the Medinan period with someone by the name of Abdullah ibn Ubay ibn Salul, who was doing all kinds of things to create obstacles, problems, dissension, struggles, dissuading people away from the goodness. You guys know who Abdullah ibn Ubay? I hope everyone here knows who Abdullah ibn Ubay ibn Salul is. Raise your hand if you know him. Raise your hand. Many people don't. Oh man. We need a Sira class ASAP, inshaAllah ta'ala. For those of you who know who he is, who is he? Fadl Hajj. The head of the hypocrites. This is a person, this is a person who did all kinds of atrocious things to the Prophet ﷺ. In fact, one of the scenes tells us that Abdullah ibn Ubay ibn Salul came to the Prophet ﷺ and he said something to him that was so awful, so disrespectful. He came in the Prophet ﷺ's way and he said to him, إِلَيْكَ عَنِّي فَوَاللَّهِ لَقَدْ آذَانِي نَتَنُ حِمَارِكَ. Prophet ﷺ was on a donkey, he was riding it. And Abdullah ibn Ubay ibn Salul came and he said, "Get away from me. The awful rotten stench of your donkey is disturbing me." So one of the companions got so angry. How could you speak like that to the Prophet ﷺ? And he said, "Wallahi lahimaru Rasulillahi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam atyabu rihan mink." The Prophet's donkey smells a whole lot better than you. Right? So, but anyway, what do you see that's so powerful in the Prophet coexisting in Medina with Abdullah ibn Ubay ibn Salul? Think about this. Who was the most powerful man in Medina? Who was the most powerful man in Medina when the Prophet ﷺ got there? The Prophet ﷺ. When you're a person who has a whole lot of power and you could really get your way, in fact, they offered it to the Prophet. "Hey, Prophet, why don't we just finish this guy off? He was causing all kinds of problems." This is a guy who, when they went out for Uhud, he intentionally coerced with his associates so that 1/3 of the army retreats, just to instill fear within the hearts of the Muslims. He wasn't a Muslim. He wasn't a Muslim. He was someone who said, "I'm Muslim," but he really wasn't. Right? But the Prophet ﷺ didn't abuse power. That takes a lot of emotional intelligence. If you're in a position of power and you are really wronged, imagine that, someone wronged you, and transgressed again, and you really could exact revenge against this person, and you don't do it for the sake of Allah, that speaks volumes to character. You know, this happens a lot, especially like when you're talking about family problems. Sometimes people will, the relationship will end in a brutal way, a tragic way. Husband and wife go separate ways, and then you'll find that the dirty laundry that happened between them, one of the two, I'm not going to say this, it happens both ways, all kinds of stories. One of the two will spread the dirty laundry throughout the whole community, right? This person did this, and this person said that, and this person's like this. وَالْعِيَاذُ بِاللَّهِ وَالْعِيَاذُ بِاللَّهِ. Wallahi, it happens. It happens. Brothers and sisters. Then that other person is in a position, what am I going to do? I could do the same thing back. I could smear this person's reputation and say he's like this or she's like that. What am I going to do when I'm in a position when someone else wrongs me and I could exact revenge against them if I wanted to? What am I going to do? That's a question for character. Allahu Alam. And I don't know if we have questions coming in yet.
We have plenty. And of them, there's a larger question. I'll ask it a little bit more detailed, and then we can get to the larger aspect of it. But when we think about building character, there's no space for selfishness. And unfortunately, in the world we live in the West, and all over the world now, we're encouraged to be selfish. And although maybe there's some small hair or silver lining there where, yes, there's a good level of selfishness of not giving access to everyone, but selfishness in a corporate setting is, you know, make sure that you have to do whatever you have to do to get to the top. Step on as many backs as you have to get to the top. Be the only person who is left on top. It's about a very individualistic, carnal way. So if I'm imbibed in this community, if that's all I'm seeing, how do I rid myself of selfishness? And the question is more about diseases of the heart. But we see diseases of the heart all around us. How do we cleanse ourselves from that?
I love this question because it actually gives us a segue to speak about how to practically build our character. And this takes a lot of work. Again, like I said, we're flawed beings. No matter how hard we try, we're always going to have tons of mistakes. That's true. But now, what can I do to start fixing myself? They say that, I need to be really objective, honest with myself, see what are my struggles. Each struggle has a solution to it. Each struggle has a solution to it. And that is, you usually remedy it by the opposite. Sometimes I might know myself. I could catch myself. When you study purification of the soul, tazkiyah, tasawwuf, when you study that in detail, one of the things they teach is, hey, you know what? Observe your thoughts before you observe your actions. Observe your thoughts. Sometimes you could catch yourself thinking arrogantly. There's something, a thought creeping in the back of your mind as you're looking at this person or that. Oh, look how this person is. Oh, this person, you might look down upon them for one reason or the other. The way they look sometimes, the level of achievement that they have, level of religiosity that they have. For many other reasons too. If you know from yourself that you have arrogance as a problem, you need to remedy that with the opposite. I'm going to do things that are going to humble me, that are going to break that idol within. I see myself in such a great light. Maybe I need to humble myself with service. Maybe I need to get on my knees and go clean the bathroom of the masjid. Maybe I need to go to a place where I see people who are afflicted and help those in need. That's something that breaks the idol of arrogance. I need to do the opposite, right? Now, what else is my problem? Selfishness? Or you know what? I need to actively pursue the opposite of this by being generous. You know what? I'm going to start going out of my way to do things that aren't in my favor, in my favor in terms of a worldly sense. Right? I'm going to be more giving to others. I'm going to give people gifts. I'm going to say to people pleasant words. I'm going to do things that I'm not going to get anything out of, no return on investment. Those are the things I'm going to look for. Some people, they calculate everything financially. Okay, if I'm going to do this, what am I going to get back? If I'm going to be in this relationship, how is it going to benefit me? It's a very, very selfish way to process things, right? Very selfish way, right? Let me start doing things that I'm absolutely not going to benefit from in a worldly sense at all. I'm just going to do it and do it for the sake of Allah. You know what I'm going to actually, if some people, they know from themselves, they have a struggle with their intentions. Sometimes I struggle to do good things for the right reason. I'm scared. I just have these thoughts inside. I'm not going to stop doing good deeds, but you know what I'm going to do more? I'm going to do things in private that no one knows about. Good deeds. I'm going to save them in my special account for my akhirah. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do it. That's what they say is the cure for riyah, is doing things in private. The cure for anger is by doing its opposite. My nafs is angry. I have a sense of animosity towards this person or that person or that person because of whatever justifiable reason. I'm going to go against my nafs and I'm going to say, you know what? I know I'm in the right, technically speaking, but I'm still going to go apologize to this. I'm still going to go fix things with this person. Why? That's counterintuitive. Why would you do that? Some people, they struggle with this thought so much. I'm not going to forgive this person. I can't come to terms with forgiving this person. Don't do that to yourself. When you forgive people, it's not for them. It's for you. It's for you and your character and your well-being and your peace of mind. Wallahi, I feel sorry for the person who goes out of their way to try to tease other people and acts in a condescending way towards other people just because they don't want to forgive. I feel sorry for them. Wallahi, some people live their life like this. They have so many grudges inside. That type of person will never be at peace. That type of person will never find peace if they harbor grudges in their heart. Brothers and sisters, that's another thing. So that's how I'd answer that question. See what you're struggling with, and however difficult it is for your ego to overcome, do the opposite. Right? You're angry, do the opposite of what that anger entails. Seek forgiveness, and that's what the Prophet ﷺ tells us. And you know what? It's not. Trust me, it's not so bad. It's not as bad as you think. Right? Some people may say, how's that going to come across? It's going to put me down. It's going to taint my ego. People are going to start looking at me the wrong way. They're going to think I was the one that was wrong. You know what? Take a look at this hadith from the Prophet. أنا زعيم ببيت في ربض الجنة لمن ترك المراء. I promise a house in the prime real estate of Jannah. The prime real estate of Jannah. You're a real estate person, so prime real estate in Jannah for someone who stops arguing even when he's in the right. Right? So Allah, that's what I would say to that.
Barakallahu feek, Shaykhi. Taking a few steps back to when you were talking about and discussing mistakes and making mistakes, there were a few comments that came up on the Slido. And by the way, you can scroll through all the questions, and the ones you feel are most relevant, you can like them so they can come up top. There was a few questions about, well, do I have to learn all the mistakes on my own? Or am I supposed to look around me and learn mistakes from others? I'm sure some people in the audience may be worried of, okay, well now I guess everyone has to learn the mistakes on their own no matter what. And suddenly, if I don't experience it myself, then I haven't learned the lesson yet. So is there a balance there when it comes to learning these mistakes?
What do you mean by learning the mistakes on your own?
So do I have to experience it firsthand? Or do we learn mistakes as a collective?
We definitely learn mistakes as a collective. Definitely. It's definitely without question. Look, the more you interact with, there's a reason why. So look, wisdom is the byproduct of experience. But it's not just any experience, it's meaningful experience. It's the byproduct of, the word, what they call an old person in Arabic, right? What do they call them? Huh? Khityar? Ya Amm al-Shaykh. Talking about Arabic, fusha. خلي الخيار لبعدين, huh? I'm talking about fusha. What do we call the old person?
Ajuz.
Ajuz, that's one word. There's another word for it. Hajj, that's another. Someone said it. Shaykh, right? The shaykh is the word for an old. Why is shaykh the word for old person? Because they use that same word for a person of knowledge. They call him shaykh, right? Why? Because it's supposed to entail a lot of life experience, meaningful life experience. But sometimes you might find someone who they live till old age, but unfortunately they didn't benefit from the experiences of life in a manner that gives them wisdom, right? That doesn't always happen. But you know, the more you experience things and you see people's lives and their stories, the more it'll teach you how to act and how to not act. That's what it's supposed to do, right? And that's why death is a reminder for who? For the dead person? No, they went on. They went on. That's it. They've returned to Allah. Death is a reminder for every person who's still alive. Hey, look at this situation. Learn from it. Learn from the story. Benefit from its wisdom. No. You benefit from the experiences of the collective group. And you know, that's why, in our tradition, our history, people didn't live isolated from each other. This is one of the struggles that we have today. People used to interact with each other a lot. They used to really be mirrors for each other. But sometimes, because we're so used to being isolated, we're unwilling to have anyone as a mirror for us. May Allah forgive us, may Allah forgive us. Sometimes we're unwilling to have any person as a mirror for us, right? If you're going to be in my close circle, you need to say yes. If you don't say yes, I don't want you. Because you know what? If you're going to be my mirror and share with me the truth hurts. And I don't want to be hurt. Right? I just want someone to enable me. I don't want someone to be... A lot of people operate like this. I ask Allah Azza wa Jal not to make us from them. But really we need to give that chance for me to grow through the collective experience, living through community, benefiting from each other, learning lessons together, right? And then, sometimes you might find the single family. The single family. In one family, forget about community. In one family, you'll find that they don't know anything about each other's personal lives, or they know very little about each other's personal lives, especially as they get older, that's it. And they might share it with their mother or father, but they'll warn their mother or father, if you share this with my brother, if you share this with my sister, I'll be so upset. The people aren't open to each other anymore. There's no shared enterprise in terms of growing as individuals. Wallahu a'lam.
Barakallahu feek. A related question is, how do we overcome doing the same mistakes again and again and again? Any advice there?
How do you overcome? There's no universal way to answer that. Me making the mistake over and over again says one thing at least. You know what it says? It says, hey, you know what? I'm human. I'm human. If I make the same mistake over and over again, what does it say about me? I'm human. I'm human, right? Sometimes people don't want those around them to be humans. They don't want them to be humans. I'm serious, right? Why? Because they don't give people around them the space to grow. And like I said, I need to understand that the journey to building character is not a glamorous one. I'm going to make a lot of mistakes in the process. And I could either help you in that process or make it 10 times harder. Many times, people make the process of growth 10 times harder for those around them. They don't give that opportunity for growth. But how do you break out of the cycle? How do you break out of the cycle? It takes a lot of different things to... First off, what's causing it? What's the stressor? All right. What are possible solutions? Well, that's going to vary from circumstance to circumstance, but there's certain universals. I need to be someone who's committed. If I lack commitment, that's a huge problem. I need to be someone who holds myself accountable. If I'm not someone who does that, there's a big problem. Maybe that's why I'm not breaking out of this mode, because I don't hold myself accountable enough. All right? Maybe I need to be a person who reflects more. If I don't reflect on my actions, well then maybe that's part of the problem. Right? I need to figure out what's causing this. What's the stressor? What is happening here? Why am I not able to channel things in a way that's leading to good results? Allahu a'lam.
Barakallahu feek. This question is the top question currently. Do you think it might be better to raise our children in a Muslim country to help their spiritual development?
Do I think it will be better to raise our children in a Muslim country? There's not one size fits all. I don't really hold anything against someone who decides this or that way. People make choices for themselves in their lives, and they should have the room to be able to do that. However, trust me, the grass is not much greener on the other side. The grass is not much greener on the other side. You don't think they have, those gossip circles in Urdun or Masr or Palestine or Pakistan, the gossip circles, all the nonsense that ruins people and families and all the discord and relation. You don't think they have that over there? They might have it over there even more. Overseas they'll have it over Bizr and Shay, right? They'll talk about the Daily Digest, everything that's happening in everyone else's life. Why this girl's like that and this guy's like that and this marriage is like that or these people are like that. They'll have some Bizr with them and they'll drink some Shay and they'll have a good time. Trust me, the grass is not greener on the other side.
Sounds like it's what you make out of it.
Huh?
No matter where the
It's
environment
what you
is.
make out of it. Absolutely. Surround yourself with meaningful people, good people. Look, like I said this plenty of times. Does Islam say that I have to be friends with the entire... Because a lot of people struggle with this. I've known this person since they were young. And we've been friends like for the past 20 years of our lives. But this person is so toxic and this person's not... And I just don't know what to do. And this is... You don't need to be friends with everyone in the world. Brothers and sisters, even if you just have 1, 2, 3 good quality friends who could be good mirrors for you, who you could really open up to and they could help you in your personal, that's enough. You don't need to be, there's no requirement in Sharia that says that I need to be deep, invested friend with every person I meet. No, I just need to have salamat sadr. I need to be a person who doesn't hold grudges. I need to be a person who doesn't harbor hatred. I need to be a person who really, really cares about people. When I'm presented with situations and I'm able to help people, I should help them. That's what I need to be. And wallah alam, it's what you make of it, right? Find yourself, ihris, look, these are words of our Prophet. The Prophet ﷺ said this. This is the advice of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. ihris ala ma yanfa'uk, wasta'in billahi wa la ta'jaz. Right? The Prophet ﷺ said, be keen on what benefits you most and seek Allah's assistance and don't ever allow yourself to feel a state of ajz. No. If certain relationships are weighing you down, if certain interactions, if certain events, if certain things are taking you away from what's going to help you become a better person, well, you know what? Maybe then you should not invest as much in those types of things. Maybe those things are why you're not able to build your character and you build yourself up to the next level. Allahu alam. If I'm always dealing with a whole lot of nonsense, then that's hardly going to allow me to elevate my mind to the point where I can have refined thought. If I could be a person of emotional intelligence and so on and so on. Wallahu alam.
Barakallahu feek. The next question, how can you help a teenage boy or a youth for that matter understand empathy and not to be arrogant when they tend to reject a direct advice?
That's one of the challenges of life. How can you let someone understand something and learn something? You wish that you could just take a USB and plug it in their head and just like change their behavior. I think that would be every parent's wish, mashallah. Just put something in and all those annoying things about their kids as they're growing up, the whole process of growth could just simply vanish. There is no easy way to do that. It's a challenge, it's a struggle. Especially you're talking about those younger age demographics. They start going through hormonal changes and rebellion and challenge and I want to be independent. And there's things that you could do to make sure that it doesn't get as bad. But again, these things, the foundations of our character are built at a very young age. When your child's 2, 3, 4, 5 years old, that's when you teach them these types of things. After the damage is done, okay, we could try to lessen the damage. But at 2, 3, 4, 5, this is where they're learning. Hey, if you're teaching them to be that person, hey, you know what? You're giving them the whole world. You're giving them all kinds of gifts all the time. You're never teaching them responsibility. You're teaching them to be selfish. This is mine. This is mine. This belongs. Sometimes parents enable this, right? Sometimes parents enable this. The kid's an innocent kid. And he said they go teach their kid, you know what? This is yours. Don't let anyone touch anything that belongs to you. You make sure you keep it for yourself. right? This is for you, right? You're teaching them selfishness before they even understand about the world. That's where these things start. But once they get to teenage years, all right, now you have to, they're going to go through some experiences. You could lessen the damage. You know what? The more you try to exert control on another human being, the more they're going to rebel. It's just the reality of life. The reality of life. You want to make them more arrogant, prideful, stubborn? Try to force them to do something without actually winning over their heart and their mind. Perfect recipe. You want to know the perfect recipe to build all the worst characteristics in your son or your daughter? MashaAllah. Zayak. MashaAllah, beautiful kid. Allah yahfazak ya Rab. So anyway, you want to build all the worst things in your son or daughter? Do that. Do that. Trigger their rebellion. But you know what? There's no easy way to do it. I'll tell you, there's one thing that you could do that'll help in the long run, ultimately, eventually. Build your son or daughter on the foundation of Iman. There's a beautiful ayah in the Quran that says this. وَالْبَلَدُ الطَّيِّبُ يَخْرُجُ نَبَاتُهُ بِإِذْنِ رَبِّهِ وَالَّذِي خَبُثَ لَا يَخْرُجُ إِلَّا نَكِدًا كَذَلِكَ نُصَرِّفُ الْآيَاتِ لِقَوْمٍ يَشْكُرُونَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says this. Look, the fertile, blessed land will bring forth its fruits by the will of its Lord. Eventually, the fruits will come out. Maybe not today or tomorrow or in a week or in a month. But if I build the foundations good in their heart, maybe eventually they'll be able to grow out of that sense of arrogance, out of that sense of selfishness. Wallahu alam.
Barakallahu feek. It reminds me of what the brother said, manipulating yourself first, understanding yourself first so that you can mirror that. So when it comes to parenting, I'd imagine it's very similar. If you lack certain characteristics or I lack characteristics, how can I expect to see it in my child? So it starts with me, and مَا يَغَيْرُ بِقَوْمٍ حَتَّى يَغَيْرُ مَا بِأَنفُسِهِمْ. We can't change the community until we change ourselves.
Absolutely.
It goes back to self-awareness, goes back to emotional intelligence. It's all connected.
Absolutely.
The next question we have is, how can we try our best to implement the characteristics that the Prophet ﷺ held into our daily lives? I know you touched on this, you talked about seerah and understanding the seerah. Are there some, is there 3-4 pointers that you can discuss or
about the how can we
implement the characteristics of the Prophet ﷺ in our lives?
How can we, first I need to learn about them. Like I said, I need to invest myself in this space. I can't expect results from my Islam if I really haven't given it the time of day. The more I invest myself in, and that's why, I find it really profound that the Quran makes the example of Iman like a tree. It's like a tree, This tree, deeply rooted, does a tree grow in a day? Does a tree grow in a day? Only in cartoons, right? Cartoons, it might grow in a day, right? It might grow in a moment. But in real life, it doesn't. It needs investment. If I really want to benefit from my Iman and my Islam, I need to water the soul over a time in a meaningful way. And then I'll find that it'll bear its fruits eventually. It's not something that happens suddenly. It's not something that happens. That's why it's this great effort of trial and error. Trial and error. Let me just be humble. Let me just be open-minded. Let me just be reasonable. Let me just be sincere. Let me rid my heart of the toxins. If I'm able to do that, then a lot of the problems that surface, that relate to this issue, will be resolved by themselves. That's the best way to begin to learn how to implement. There's no way a diseased heart could appreciate the life of the Prophet ﷺ. There's no way a heart that's full of oppression, full of hatred, full of animosity, full of arrogance can ever really take in that beauty, that prophetic beauty of his legacy and live by it. That's where I need to start. Allahu Alam.
Barakallahu feek. Before I keep going into the questions here, does anyone have any questions from the audience?
Any questions, comments?
All right. What would you do in a situation where you made a mistake a long time ago, you've learned from it, you've improved, but the people around you, they can't seem to let it go?
لست عليهم بمسيطر. I can't control people. If I've improved and I've fixed what was between me and Allah, and if I've given this person back their rights, whatever they're owed, and they still can't get over it, they still can't forgive me, well, that's not my problem. That's not my I am not sanctioned with changing the hearts of people and perceptions of people. I'm sanctioned with at least facilitating change, with at least being a source of inspiration. That's what I need to do. But can I really change their perceptions? You know what? This life that we live in, a lot of things happen in it. Most of the things that happen in it are all just distractions. And most people end up getting caught up in these distractions. What I could choose to do is not be one of those people. That's what it comes down to. Allahu Alam.
And how do I find strength in myself, when I feel like everyone is bringing this past up or bringing these, the old me, how do I find strength and resolve?
How do I find strength? Look, I'll tell you this. If you're a person who has these characteristics that we've been discussing, and you're in a toxic environment, many people find themselves in a toxic environment that sort of weighs them down. Don't despair. Don't despair. Brothers and sisters, if you're in a toxic environment that's weighing you down, don't despair. Because that toxic environment will teach you so much about life. It'll strengthen you in ways that you couldn't imagine. Don't ever wish that your life was easy, perfect, no problems, no troubles at all. I'm telling you, sometimes we get caught up in that type of thinking. Especially when you see other people around you, their life's a lot easier than yours. And you start thinking, I wish my life was like this person. I wish my life was like that person. I wish I didn't have to deal with parents that are like this. I wish I didn't have to deal with children that are going through this. Sometimes a person might find themselves maghlub ala amro. Their children might be going through all kinds of problems in their marriages, problems with whatever it is, the personal life, their mental health issues, their drugs or kaba'ir or whatever it might be. Don't wish for a different reality. There's a reason why Allah put you in yours. There's things that you could learn from your reality that are very, very special. That's why on the Day of Judgment, the people who had it easy are going to wish they didn't have it easy. That's when things come to fruition. On the Day of Judgment, things come to fruition. People are going to wish they didn't have it easy. Look at our Prophet ﷺ. Look, like we said, it's all about meaningful experience. The Prophet ﷺ, where did he get his emotional intelligence from? I'm telling you, it wasn't just because of wahi. The Prophet ﷺ, Allah raised the Prophet up. When we say he's al-Habib al-Mustafa, he's the chosen one. What did it look like when Allah chose him? He lost his father, he lost his mother. He lost his grandfather, he lost all his children except Fatima. She passed away after him 6 months later. He was kicked out of his hometown by his own people. He was brutalized. He had to see some of his closest family members disbelieve and antagonize him, like Abu Lahab, his uncle. He had to see loss upon loss, tragedy upon tragedy. And what did this do to the Prophet ﷺ? This is what gave him emotional intelligence. This is what causes this type of thing. So don't be, and that's why the Quran even says it. Look, the Prophet ﷺ, Allah has kamal mutlaq. Allah has utter perfection. Human beings, the best they could have is relative perfection. Kamal nisbi. The Prophet ﷺ, did he have all the answers laid out in front of him? I can confidently say no, even though he's the best of Allah's creation. Why? The Quran says it. قُلْ لَا أَمْلِكُ لِنَفْسِي نَفْعًا وَلَا ضَرًّا إِلَّا مَا شَاءَ اللَّهُ وَلَوْ كُنْتُ أَعْلَمُ الْغَيْبِ لَاسْتَكْثَرْتُ مِنَ الْخَيْرِ وَمَا مَسَّنِيَ السُّوءُ. There was a Prophet ﷺ afflicted with what we call su', hardship. He said, if I knew the unseen, I would have never experienced any troubles. Don't regret the troubles you experience. They teach you the most about life. Right? So that's what I would share about that person. If your whole surroundings are bringing you down, learn from your surroundings. Let it make you a bigger, greater, stronger, more resilient person. And then you know what? If you're sincere enough and you search hard enough, Allah will bless you with people who will be more inspiring. You don't need to necessarily keep yourself embedded in that reality. Search for good people, you will find them. Search for good people, you will find them by the will of Allah.
Barakallah feek. The next question we have is, how do we help kids make Muslim friends when they don't go to Islamic school? and if the parents may not have close friendships with Muslim parents? My answer is, come to the Saturday program, come to the Friday programs. But, Sheikh?
Yeah, no, absolutely. You know, look, you need to take an extra step. You need to try, and if it's not working, you need to try harder. And if that's not working, you need to try harder after that. You know, what is it? Look, the Prophet ﷺ, he tells us in the hadith, إِنَّمَا الْعِلْمُ بِالتَّعَلُّمِ وَالْحِلْمُ بِالتَّحَلُّمِ. We get this question a lot. You know, how can I learn about the deen? By exerting yourself and trying to learn, right? It seems like such a basic answer, but some things, that's the answer to them. You want to know the solution? You got to push through this. You got to try harder. Not working? Try harder than that. مَنْ سَارَ عَلَى الدَّرْبِ وَصَلْ. Whoever walks down the path will eventually reach the destination. Don't give up quickly. Going back to the subject of commitment, right? Don't give up quickly. Maybe that's the problem. Maybe that's the problem. Oh, you know what? How many times we get this? So, you know, again, this is, you know, part of strength of character, or I should say, building character, is being resilient. I'm not going to give up. You know, the person comes and complains, oh, my mother or my father or my brother or my sister or whatever, whoever it is, or my spouse is like this. And you give them some advices, they try it. After one day, oh, I tried that stuff and it didn't work, right? You know, maybe I'm giving up too quickly. Maybe that's what I need. I need to strengthen my spine and have a little bit more commitment, right? How can I become a patient person? The Prophet tells you, exert yourself to become patient. You know, in order to become a patient person, you're going to lose your patience 1,000 times. The 1,001th time, maybe you'll become a patient person. Right? That's the way it works, right? Wallahu alam.
Barakallahu feek. If someone wrongs you, and this question relates to the khutbah and management of conflict. Does someone have a question? Okay. Managing conflicts. If someone wrongs you, how do I act in a way that is corresponding with good character? You know, and how is it most beneficial or more beneficial than retaliating against that person?
Yeah. Look, if someone wrongs you, look, you could right the wrong. That's absolutely justifiable. You know, can you have it addressed in a meaningful way? Yeah, absolutely. You know, I'm not telling you, alhamdulillah, our deen is not a turn-the-cheek deen. Right? It's not a turn-the-cheek deen. No, you can, Islam doesn't mean I need to just lay over on my back and let people do whatever they want to me and step all over me. That's not what Islam teaches us, all right? You know, it's okay if you stand up for yourself in a meaningful way, in a constructive way, in a way that doesn't cause problems. But at the same time, I'm not going to take it from the standpoint of retaliation. You know what? Fulan hurt me, Fulana hurt me, Fulana wronged me. I'm going to sit with Fulan or Fulana and tell them 1, 2, 3, 4. I didn't like this behavior. You know, I'm going to realize that this person is not a devil. I need to break out of that. Sometimes people go to extremes, you know. All right? You're either an angel or you're a devil. I'm going to lift you to the high heavens above if I love you. But if you get on my bad side, I'm going to put you in the 7th layer of hellfire. You're the worst human being. See nothing but black. See nothing. No, I'm going to speak with this person in a meaningful way. This hurt me. I need to address these emotions. You know how, this is a sign of weak character. Weak character is, you know what, I'm going to just take it and put it in my heart and I'm going to get really angry. And I'm not going to ever let the person, I'm not going to even give the person a chance. You know how many times someone has hurt another person without ever even knowing? You know, it happens all the time. You know, this person sometimes will stay holding these hard feelings for months. Right? Oh, this person did this to me. This person must have meant that. And the shaitan concocts in their mind this whole image that's utterly false. There's no truth or substance to it. And you know what this person's fatal flaw was? Keep the problem inside. Let me be open and talk with this. Let me give people a chance to explain themselves. Let people give people a chance to correct themselves. Maybe that's part of the problem. You know, that's part of what causes people to suffocate. You know how many people allow themselves to emotionally suffocate because of fictitious things they imagined in their head? No, let me just have a head-on approach, a meaningful approach. Let me try to find solutions. You know, that's another part of weak personality and building character. Some people suffice with endlessly characterizing the problems. My life is like, and you know, sometimes they'll just keep on like recycling the things that have happened to them for the past 20 years and 30 years of their life. My life is like this because this person did that and I never got this, and this was happening to me and that person did this to me and this and that. ومش عارف إيه. طيب, when is solutions? Where are the solutions? Where are the solutions? I'm not looking for those. I just want to constantly vent and characterize the problem, but not really look for solutions. Wallahu alam.
Barakallahu feek. This is an excellent question. Can a nice, humble person be seen weak to others? How do you present yourself and not seem unconfident?
This is a big, there's a big misconception that, you know, yeah, like you said earlier, cutthroat, right? Sometimes our reality is very harsh, right? People get emotionally wounded and they think the solution to this is, you know what, I'm going to cover up those wounds and I'm going to become heartless just like everybody else. I'm going to become selfish like everyone else. And they'll actually articulate this. Hey, you know what? Focus on you first. You first. No one else, because everyone's selfish. No one deserves it. You're number one, right? And I'm not saying that there's no true meaning. There's no sense or logic behind this thread of thinking. But sometimes it could be extreme. It could be dangerous. That it could be reactionary, that I'm allowing the reality that I'm dealing with to actually change the goodness inside. I shouldn't allow that. You know, some people say that, you know, don't be a, you know, if you're tayyib, that means you're darwish. That means what? يعني مش فاهم حاجة. Means that, you know, if you want to be a strong person, you need to be just like everyone else. And they even said, إن لم تكن ذئبا يعوي أكلتك الذئاب, right? If you're not a wolf that, howls very loudly, what? The wolves are going to eat you. That's what, it's a line of poetry in Arabic. If you're not a wolf that howls, the wolves are going to eat you, right? So the solution is, let me become a wolf like everyone else, so that way I could learn to live in this reality of, that's not a solution, right? That's not a solution. Is there any truth behind prioritizing fixing yourself before giving da'wah? Yeah, I'm not saying that. Yeah, there is some truth behind that. But again, I shouldn't be reactionary to my reality in a way that takes away the goodness and tiba in the heart. How can you be? Look at Sayyidina Umar. Sayyidina Umar, you will not get more tayyib than Sayyidina Umar. Sayyidina Umar, we wish that we had the tiba and the purity of heart that Sayyidina Umar had. He was so pure of heart that wahi would come aiding his opinion in so many situations. You know what they call those situations in the seerah? They call them al-Umariyat. I have a book that's written, it's called that. It's al-Umariyat. The situations of Umar. Umar had that heart, that pure heart, but yet he was a very staunch person, right? What did he say? He said, Sayyidina Umar is actually the one who said, لَسْتُ بِالْخِبِّ وَلَا الْخِبُّ يَخْدَعُنِي. Sayyidina Umar said this. He said, I'm not a wolf. I am not a wolf, but I'm not someone who is deceived by wolves either. So how can I be someone who's tayyib, but still strong on truth? I'm going to be clear on boundaries. That's okay, we talked about setting boundaries before. I'm going to be clear on rights. I'm going to constructively address situations instead of destructively addressing them. What's the most constructive way to address a situation? You know what? I have a problem with fulan. Let me go talk to fulan about it and resolve it with fulan. Let me do that, right? If you don't know Arabic and you're wondering who fulan is, it's not a person. So it means so and so. And it's not flan either. Flan is a form of sweets that we eat in Arabic. So, I'm just joking. Anyway, let me go talk to, what do some people do sometimes? I'm going to talk to everyone else except that person, right? And by the time this person hears about it, the whole community heard about it, right? Everyone knows, and sometimes the story gets spiced up along the way. The story gets, if there's one thing about, our different type of Muslim ethnicities, we love spices. Whether you're talking about Desis, Arab, they love spices too. Different types of spices, right? Different types of spices than the Desis, right? So, but we love spicing things up. And when it comes to spicing things up in stories, it's very bad. It's not good. It's not healthy, right? So that's part of the problem. Let me be tayyib, but let me also be clear on rights. Clear on truth. Let me be a person. Look at this. We said this earlier in the khutbah. This is a beautiful golden words by Imam al-Shafi'i. Words to live by. You know what? Be very pleasant, humble, and willing, and forgiving. Yet, look at this, what Imam Shafi'i teaches. He says, مَا عَرَضْتُ الْحَقَّ عَلَى أَحَدٍ. And he says, and I'll give you the exact words just so I don't misspeak. Imam Shafi'i, he said in the statement, he says, مَا أَوْرَدْتُ الْحَقَّ عَلَى أَحَدٍ فَقَبِلَهُ إِلَّا هِبْتُهُ وَلَا كَابَرَنِي أَحَدٌ عَلَى الْحَقِّ إِلَّا سَقَطَ مِنْ عَيْنِي. What does he say? Imam Shafi'i. These are words that show you character and emotional intelligence. Imam Shafi'i, he said, whenever I present truth to someone and he accepts it, that person I hold high up. إِلَّا هِبْتُهُ. I have a sense of reverence and respect and regard for this person. It's not about making mistakes. It's about how you react to them. We all make mistakes. How do you react to them? That's going to show content of character, and that's going to define who I become as a person, right? And then he says, وَلَا أَوْرَدْتُ الْحَقَّ عَلَى أَحَدٍ فَكَابَرَنِي إِلَّا سَقَطَ مِنْ عَيْنِي. When I present that truth to somebody, and they start, they want to clean their hands. I have nothing to do with it. All right? Or he's just inad, just stubbornness. All right? I'm going to deflect it, or you know what, I'm going to find a way to justify it. What does he say? سَقَطَ مِنْ عَيْنِي. That person who doesn't accept truth, that person who's unwilling to consider, that person falls from my eyes. Nasallahu salama.
Barakallahu feek, Shaykhi. Are there any questions from the audience? Okay. There is one. Sister.
Absolutely. Jazakallah khair, sister. For anyone who couldn't hear, she was saying that media plays, or social media, or the things that people take in from the different platforms, plays a really big role in shaping people's personalities, and in also that level of commitment and sacrifice and everything that it entails. All that plays into it. So we need to be very careful of how much we allow that into our lives, in influencing who we become as people. Now, I just want to add something to this before we get to you. I want to add something here, and that is, sister, this absolutely relates to that problem that I said, that fragmentation of our communities, of our families. I need I need to have those good voices in my life. It reminds me of something that our beloved Shaykh Yasser said when he came a few months back to the forum, and we were discussing the subject of marriage and family, and how in the past a village altogether would raise a child, and that you'd have all those good voices playing into the development of the generation to come. But sometimes now we don't have that, and we're unwilling to have that, and that really affects. In the past, they had a relationship there was a companionship that people had with each other, and people would have a sense of stewardship with their predecessors, with their elders, with their mentors, with their teachers. There was a deep connection. And if I don't have that in my life, brothers and sisters, then what's going to shape me as a person? The nonsense I'm seeing on TikTok? Yeah, some people, that's what shapes them as people. Because hours on end are dedicated to these amazing TikTok videos that are coming out, and that, it ends up shaping how they think and see the world. Or, toxic friendship, well, that's going to affect how I end up seeing the world. Right? Or what I invest in terms of my time and the way it's spent. And like a lot of the kids, especially, today, and heavily invested in video games and all that stuff, that's gonna play into how I see the world, right? When your child's brain is fried because on the weekend he's playing a full day of video games, and the whole video game is based on, let me kill the most people I can so I could be a winner, right? Oh, mashallah, it's going to create such a profound perspective on life, right? I killed this many people today in this video game. I'm number one, right? I'm a winner, right? What do you think you're going to get out of that type of person? You think that person's going to have meaningful perspectives on life? لا, كله بطاطس. Right? Like the Masriyin say. There was a brother who wanted to say something.
This kind of ties back to the whole ownership thing. My personal opinion, I feel like it's very easy to say this is the problem, this is the problem. It's very hard to say I'm the problem.
Ya salam.
So with like social media, everybody wants to blame social media. Social media is a tool that was originally created to make money. That's never going anywhere. So the best thing to do is to use it for your advantage. You can use it to be a psychological reinforcer of cultures that you like. Me personally, I strictly follow martial arts, jiu-jitsu, religion, and everything. So every time I look at my social media,
Yeah.
reinforced about being a Call of Duty soldier, I'm being reinforced about this, this, and this.
Yeah, absolutely. You don't have to. But you know what? Most people are not leaders, they're followers. And to change that reality is very, very difficult. Very difficult to change that. Jazakallah khair. Barakallah feekum for that comment. Anyone else want to say something before we conclude? Go ahead, says Yusuf.
You talked about something of someone like being nice in the reality of this dunya and people being like very tough, just like looking at your purpose, what's your purpose to please others, to make others fear you and respect you, or at the end of the day, please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then if you just reinforce that purpose in your mind, then you're not going to really find a big deal to kind of like put aside your ego and your pride and be a nice person, because at the end of the day, who's the winner here? It doesn't matter who you found,
I love it.
I want to look like he was the big guy and all that, and then where did he end up?
Absolutely. Jazakallah khair. Reinforce your purpose. That's what matters. In the end of the day, the grand scheme of things, even if people don't get it right in their minds, you know what? I don't need to change the perception of every single human being. Everyone will think whatever they want. As long as I'm doing what's right, and I reinforce that and find purpose through that, that's what matters most. Jazakallah khair. Allah barik feek. Yukrimak inshaAllah. There is something I wanted to emphasize since we mentioned our beloved Shaykh Yasser. The long-awaited program about marriage that we've been speaking about for a while is going to come in the coming weeks, inshaAllah. We're going to have a meeting point. We're going to call it the meeting point. You guys remember the meeting point? How many of you aren't aware of what the meeting point is? Raise your hand if you're not aware of it. Okay. If you're not aware of it, go to any podcast,
YouTube or the podcast app.
Buzzsprout, the Apple Podcasts. Put the meeting point. You're going to see a series of, unfortunately not a lot of them are on there, not all of them are on there, but you'll find some episodes from the meeting point, which is with Shaykh Yasser, Ustad Zaid, Abbasi and myself. And you'll also find them a lot on our YouTube page, ICPC Clifton YouTube page. You could find them there. But it's going to be that type of, that's actually what inspired the Friday Forum. I wish I could have them both here every single week, but unfortunately that's too tough because they have a lot of other commitments. But we're going to have them here inshallah first Friday in February, first Friday in February. I think it's February 3. February 3, Ustad Zaid, Sheikh Yasser, and myself. And we're going to have a nice, calm discussion, hopefully about marriage. And hopefully everybody will go home happy and we won't have people angry or sad for whatever reason.
So please let everyone know, let your siblings, cousins, mothers, fathers, everyone know, inshallah. Usually we get a big turnout for the meeting point. It's a podcast setting, a much more dynamic conversation with the three of them, inshallah. So barakallah feekum. Shaykh, would you like to close?
جزاكم الله خير. بارك الله فيكم. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد ان لا اله الا انت نستغفرك ونتوب اليك. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. العصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر الا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.